Wow, thanks for the hat, Dale. This is something pretty cool.
Well, you know, Patrick, we're always trying to be safe.
True. Although we don't have ceilings in here.
You know what? It's probably safe to take these off.
You want to take them off?
I think
like
we
them.
should.
All right.
We just got clearance from OSHA that we're fine. Good
Oh
to
yeah.
go.
yeah, You've been dealing with a lot of that,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I'm going to put the logo like this. How about that?
Okay, I
We'll
love
do a
that.
little stellar marketing.
Why not?
You know, let's go like something like, anyway. There we go. So thanks for being with us today. You know, we had the opportunity, as those viewers just saw the little docu-series there. We went out on site. That was fun.
It's always fun to reveal that project.
Yeah.
As you know, you've been through there a few times. We've probably toured 200 or 300 different people, and it's the same response every time. Wow.
Yeah. So let's back up and let's just talk a little bit about the actual property. I know you mentioned it's 11 stories. Tell us a little bit about the background of the property and what we have.
Before we get too deep into that, I just want to know, how do I look?
You look great. Actually, I was thinking purple, but I had the blue on. So
I was very concerned about what to wear, so I just went through your closet. This is your
that is mine.
This is your jacket.
Is it really?
Yeah, and everybody needs to know what's really exciting
All right,
about
so
this
give it
jacket.
a little, go like in the back. Give it a,
Yeah,
there you go.
This
Perfect.
This nice pillow we have back here. I'm going to move that. But anyway.
Oh, that's cool. We look cool.
So look at this. Look at the insides of this.
Oh, yes.
And what everybody needs to know, as a matching vest and pants. I can't wait to put those on.
I thought you'd come out. You should have came out in the full suit.
Well, you know.
That's fun. You always bring energy and enthusiasm to the things you do. What are you doing for this project?
Well, you know, I'll maybe repeat myself a little bit here from what we saw in the video, but back in May of 2018, Stellar was invited to participate in the project, which initially was for the property management contributions, and then I crafted a very comprehensive marketing plan, which included a charrette of contributors at the time, or a vision session, as you might think. And we got everybody in the room, and we decided to make this the most memorable development in all of our careers. So with the support of ownership, we went down a path that included a theme. And I've always been a fan of thematic builds where we make commitments in the very beginning that all the partners from design and architecture, they all are tied to one thinking. And our commitment, because this is a 1985 very iconic structure, the commitment is to the building itself. And anytime we're faced with a challenge of a decision, we peel back to the core of the theme and reinforce that commitment. So since May of 2018, we've added more partners along the way, which would include the general contractor. And we touched on that in the video, how critical it is that even though everyone that's involved in this project, to their own credit, deserves to be part of it based on their experience, the most critical component is the ability to work together and solve problems, because the problems that emerge during a process of adaptive reuse, when you're removing 6 million pounds of concrete from the facade, you're gonna unveil some surprises. And you know, the old saying in development is everything can be cured with time and money, and they're all part of a process, and you're just trying to minimize and mitigate anything that's going to determine if this was a bad project or not. But we've been fortunate. We've our second architect. We're well on our way to producing what we mentioned earlier, which probably will be the most exciting for rent product that Arizona's ever seen.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of people are watching the progress. And I would suspect that a lot of people couldn't find land in those areas, and here you have a whole new redevelopment opportunity. Do you get inspiration from maybe bigger cities, the Chicagos, the San Franciscos, the New Yorks, of just the transitions that those cities have gone through, and without the use of adding more land?
Great question, simply because when, going back to my initial conversation with ownership, quite frankly, I just started Stellar, and I may have had one or two clients at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to be convinced that I had the wherewithal to be a participant, and stems back to my time of living in New York when the condo conversions from office to condos were taking place. At my time with City Club throughout the Midwest, in Detroit and Chicago and Cincinnati, where we took historic buildings, 100-year-old buildings, and converted them to multifamily. I didn't realize at the time how valuable that experience was going to become right here in my backyard.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our what prepares us for our next opportunities. Do you find that the ownership groups need to be positioned in different ways? I mean, it sounds like the theme is, decades and decades and generations in the future, and how you're thinking and shaping the design and marketing of this building. Do you need a unique ownership group to have sort of that patience and that mindset, or what's unique about that too? Because it seems to me like it's just not a typical let's get in and get out.
Well, this could easily have been a merchant-minded project where the intent of the investment was to redevelop and then sell.
Mm-hmm.
And from the very beginning, it was very clear in everyone's mind that this is actually a legacy project for the general partner. And when a tough decision is necessary, you just have to think about the fact that there's 120,000 cars that drive by that project every day, and he wants to be proud.
Right.
And that is the perfect scenario for someone like me, who's in the twilight of his career and wants to apply, my experience and feel proud as well, because Arizona's my home.
Right. Yeah, and you're part of that story now. And are you bringing employees and even the contractors as they lay the ground? I mean, are you bringing them on that journey with you?
Going back to the beginning, we were initially just the property management company, and our role grew rapidly to where we were in the selection process with the architects and the design team, subsequently the general contractor. So yes, we've played a very significant role in not only shaping the interior dimensions and drafting every floor plan and common area, purposing them with services, and we've had 10 iterations of floor plans, seeking the best of the best from around the country, the best designs from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I was inspired to create a fitness boutique by what I saw in Milan, Italy in 2018. And I am working hard to recreate a vision similar to that, that I believe will be breathtaking.
Well, can we talk more about that? I mean, is that something you can go into now? Or because I remember at the early stages of where I had you on the treadmill up on the 11th floor, and at that point we were all building, here's the fitness center, and you go to this sort of common area, and then here comes COVID. I'm like, man, that deal, fitness in the unit, that's amazing. Anyways, those kinds of ideas and strategies, even if it's the floor plan, you're sort of known for attacking that floor plan and thinking about that customer. Is just the more, let's not just throw anything together here. Where does that all come from? Is that traveling to Italy, or?
It's everywhere. It's all the influences I've become. I can't say I've always been a student of design and functionality, but since my antennas went up, I couldn't get enough of it. And going back a little bit more now, when we talk, I mentioned the comprehensive marketing plan. Part of that was, and I'll step back just a second, anybody that is in property management that has participated in a lease up, typically what we are given, the task we're given is the developer says, I just built 300 apartments, now go find 300 customers.
Right.
And you have no influence on anything at that point, and the ship sailed in terms of any form of alterations in the size of the apartments, the configuration, the amenities. You're simply just trying to find customers. And so we work, and then further to that note, when you stabilize, you push the print demographic button to find out who's chosen to live in your community.
Right.
We worked it completely the other way around, where we identified 6 personas, such as single male, single female professional, married couple, empty nester single, empty nester family. We identified 6 critical personas that we believe would appreciate and could afford this project. And then I created a questionnaire of 25 questions surrounding expectations in the common area, preference in the floor plans, kitchen island over a table. If you have a kitchen island, would you like a cooktop or a sink? And I surveyed 6 people in each of the 6 personas and drew some summaries on this is what the customer is saying. And then before we drafted any plans on the interior of the building, pushed that over to the architects and said, this is where we're going. All decisions should speak to our customer, not what worked well for you in San Francisco, not what you believe it should look like, but we're going to build it to the customer. And that is that's been very helpful in driving home ideas about when we all sit together and I have an idea and you have an idea, the customer is going to reward us eventually with these decisions. There's an old saying like, does an architect ever live in his building? In a multifamily, the answer is usually no. And we wanted to remove that from any level of doubt or influence. And we wanted our end user to have a big say in what this building was going to look like.
That's powerful. I mean, you think about that, the architect building something or designing and structuring a product that they're not maybe even living in. And that may be tested in some cases, maybe a truthful statement, untruthful statement, but the reality is, like, you think about it, I would say more than not, probably so. What you shared with me here today is very fascinating because I think of technology, and if you're going to go and get and raise capital and enter a marketplace and get investors excited about making a new app or a new thing that solves a problem, you have to do what you just said. Otherwise, it would land flat, and you have to think first, like, do I have a market for this? And does this market want this? And what is the problem this app solves or software solves? And who would use it? And how would they feel when they use it? And all that stuff. And the smart investors are asking those founders those questions. And the reality is, these legacy operators sometimes have had so much success. It's like, hey, let's move that, plan it, and just build, and then go sell it. Like you said, I love that analogy. Is that why Stellar was chosen, I think, for this project? Because you took that approach?
I took a real gamble, walked out on a limb and just spoke my mind and said, if this were my development, this is what my concerns would be based on what I've seen in other markets.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we took a 100-year-old building in downtown Cincinnati, and granted, we had to work within the scope of the historical guidelines. But once we were opening, I could tell that this this mindset had not been in play, because the floor plans were amazing, but there were few people in Cincinnati that get that.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say anything down about Cincinnati, I love that. But we had to wait for enough customers to come along, and our absorption schedule was compromised. We probably even wrote down some of our rent pro forma because we weren't hitting our numbers immediately. And so we wanted to just take it from a slightly different approach. And you had mentioned something about the fitness center, and at one point in time we were shooting some video up on the 10th floor, sitting on an upright bike, cardio bike.
Right.
Well, this is pre-COVID, but it applies even more today.
Right.
Because you look at the lure of the Peloton commercials a year ago. Who wouldn't love to get out of bed, climb on a sophisticated cardio equipment, get your work done, jump in the shower, your dog's at your feet, whatever. That is a very attractive image. And with the floor plans we have, 11 feet of floor to ceiling glass, there's no better view than your front room or your bedroom to do this workout. You can see Camelback Mountain, South Mountain, you can see
downtown,
it all.
Downtown, everywhere.
As opposed to going down to a traditional fitness center where the view's not nearly as good. So early on, the idea was to create spaces where people could have some level of flex space if they chose to work out in their room. We're going to provide them with a piece of cardio equipment, no charge.
Yeah.
If that's what makes your lifestyle great there, I'll give it to you.
Right. This is amazing. Let's talk a little bit more about the product. How many floor plans? I don't even know if you can even speak to the tune. It feels like there's a lot of confidentiality in this because you're kind of setting the new barriers for what's broken here in many markets around testing assumptions. But yeah, if you can share it. If not, then
Well, in nearly 3 years,
but
this is the most I've disclosed ever, but that's because we're approaching the marketing period.
Okay.
And so we've pretty much, we've been engaged in social media for 6 or 7 months. It's a drip campaign. We're just teasing everyone. I mean, like I said, 120,000 cars pass by that project every day. There's no place to hide.
Right.
And if somebody
and they're
wants,
going to work or somewhere, so you've kind of got it covered.
I've got them. I've got the fish swimming past my line, and so, my name's on the banner. My phone rings, and the campaign is intended to draw a large audience. Now we begin to qualify. Just last week, last month we started to provide images of the floor plans. Last week, we started to provide some range of pricing. And yes, they'll be the highest rents in Phoenix. They deserve it. I don't think you could glean from the video what the shape of the building is. But, I mean, if you can imagine the rack that you use to rack a ball of pool balls, that shape, that's the building. Yeah. With a center atrium. You've seen it.
Yes, it's
goes
amazing.
Straight up 11 stories. Well, fascinating, but challenging for building living spaces. You've stood in some of the floor plans. There's 16 in total, ranging from studio, 525 square feet, to 3 bedrooms, just under 1,900 square feet. The penthouses are a full sweeping radius with 120 linear feet of window wall, where you see north, east, south, all from one space. You don't have to move. And that's the draw. That's when people are driving down Camelback or Central, what makes them probably almost run into the car in front of them. But it's also what makes our phone ring, and that, in our opinion, is the key to our success. Our social plan has generated a database of over 2,000 email followers that get blasted every month. And while we're approaching a period of time where we start to take deposits and reservations, I intend to carve that list down to 120 when I'm 60 days out from a first C of O, just so I know who my real audience is.
Mm-hmm.
There was a mention in the video of how there's 4 historical districts that come together at this intersection. These people have lived there a long time. They protect their neighborhood, and they're nosy.
Yeah, they're watching your every move.
They want to know what we're doing, and they represent probably 20% of my database of my email. I don't care. I don't care if they know what we're doing. In fact, I want them to know so they can tell a friend.
Yeah.
And that's just the nice residual benefit of that plan right now.
Yeah. Is it obvious that you're building an apartment community there? So a lot of people just think, oh, well, they're just redoing this office building. Man, they're taking a long time.
On my way here, I received a call from one of the more successful brokerages in Phoenix, and he asked me if his firm could participate in the referral process for the sale of the condos. And I said, Oleg, I am really so happy to hear that a man of your influence doesn't know at this point if they're for rent or for sale. Because now I've got you and all your realtors engaged.
Yes.
And before I say it's for rent, because that just disconnects everybody.
Yeah. But people are rethinking that now, right? I mean, owning versus renting and the whole idea around it. It's pretty interesting.
In concert with the demographic analysis, we did a feasibility report, and we also drew some conclusions about the downsizers and what would be important to them, and their third largest concern. Safety is always first. We all know that. If we're in this business, if you don't know it, it's safety. Number 2 is size and price. Okay, yeah, it's all got to work. Third was ample storage. So I have 5 stories or 5 floors of basement for parking. I'm overparked, and I am going to build the largest storage containers in a basement that I think have ever been built, which is going to allow people to move a piano in. I'm going to have underground garages for your Ferrari and your Lamborghini. It's going to be a building of convenience.
Mm-hmm. You're not speaking to my Ferrari and Lamborghini. You're talking about the audience, right?
You're more than willing to pull in.
In terms of, we talked a little bit about the fitness aspect and the trend to the Peloton marketplace and all that. What else are you doing for the active, engaged? You're right there by downtown. I'm sure you can capture all of the ranges of incomes in terms of access and where they need to be in which districts. Is there anything else you're doing in terms of amenities, as we call them, or any lifestyle components?
By the way, if you were on my team, I would have zapped you just then, because we're not downtown, we're uptown.
Uptown, okay.
And there's a significant difference.
What is the difference between?
It's the best of all worlds. You've got an insulation from the hustle and bustle and the traffic congestion of downtown. Anybody that knows downtown, specifically Roosevelt Row, it's vibrant, but it's challenging to navigate if you're trying to get in and out quickly.
Sure.
And you're subject to a true downtown living environment of noise and disruption and so what have you. Uptown differs from. It's upscale, it's sophisticated.
Sure. Yeah, and even in Phoenix, downtown Phoenix, the concerts and the stadiums and all that sort of rush in, rush out, all those, the conferences and the conventions and things like that. And
don't get me wrong, I love downtowns.
Oh, I do too. And actually, if you look at Old Town Scottsdale versus North Scottsdale, very unique scenarios.
It's a great comparison.
Yeah.
Kierland as opposed to downtown.
Right. Exactly.
Scottsdale Quarter as opposed to Old Town. Very similar comparison.
Right. And even in the big cities, you look at New York and these types of elements. So wonderful. So I guess what should I be asking that I'm not asking about this project?
Let me hydrate here. Excuse me.
I like how the water matches the jacket.
It all comes together, doesn't it?
That is great.
And by the way, I noticed earlier when I was watching the show that there was a little bit of a lag in the audio compared to the video. So every now and then I just slow down and let it catch up. I'm doing that now.
You're doing that now?
Okay, here we go. You know, there's I don't even know where to start on to tell you everything there is about this project. I'll talk a little bit about as we approach the marketing. We leased a space in Uptown Plaza, which, as you know, is a very high-end plaza directly across the street from the project, with the intentions of doing pre-leasing. And as we occupied the space, we moved Stellar into the space. It's 2,200 square feet, and we moved in the back. We're going to build a mock-up demo kitchen in the front of the office and display the floor plans and everything. Well, while we're designing all this and the time that it takes to build it, the space was sitting virtually empty, other than my partner and I in our desks. And a very good friend of mine and a well-known artist, Leroy Ellie, passed away. And he left his art collection, which is his workings, his paintings, to his daughter Shiera, who I worked with for 20 years at Mark Taylor. And I said, Shiera, bring all that artwork down here. We're going to hang it inside this space. In fact, I'm wearing this right here. This was the promotional T-shirt for our art showing. And what I learned from that was I generated more foot traffic and interest in my apartments by hanging artwork than if I had hung floor plans.
Yes.
And it was not part of my marketing plan.
Sure.
It generated a good 250 leads that I may not have ever had.
Wow.
So I guess if there's something to learn is, you know, as you're crafting your path for success, keep some options open, because if you're open to new thinking, there's always going to be an opportunity to explore.
That's great. I have a clip I want to roll. Can we do that for a moment?
I'm going to hold my breath.
All right, let's have a look at this.
Hi, Dale with Stellar Residential again here. We're down in the basement of One Camelback on the 5th floor, where we have 462 parking spaces, large storage lockers, dog spa, garages, you name it, we've got it. Property's amazing, and I can't wait to take you upstairs so you can look around. Oh wait, that's right, I forgot. We're on the 10th floor now. So just look around at these views, okay? 10.5 feet, floor to ceiling glass. This particular apartment is 180 square feet, 120 linear feet of window wall. On this floor alone, there's 200 glazing panels in place, where there's 1,400 total in the entire building. A view from every seat in the house. The story is all about the building first, the intersection second, the design third, then the floor plans and the views. And every challenging decision has to tie back to our theme. It is about the building, the integrity of the building, 1985 build. It's going to be here for the next 5 decades, so we have to get it right. It just won't get knocked down when someone's tired of it. It's going to be here forever. So that's our commitment. That's what makes the decision-making somewhat easier, not always cheap, but I think we come away with the right decisions on what to do in this build. We core drilled over 2,000 holes through here to run the electrical and the plumbing. Sounds simple. It's not, but just part of the process.
It's always a little embarrassing to see yourself in video.
Yeah, I'm hearing the feedback on that. It's a lot of fun it's one thing to say it, print it, but when you can take them there, you know, it's very different. You're doing a lot of tours, you mentioned. What are they saying on these tours? Is it city officials, or is it?
I'm actually, it's more the folks that are intrigued by the architecture, the design, the construction, less about the people that are considering living there. In fact, I don't take anybody up there that's a potential renter.
Right.
I kind of keep it inside on this side of the industry. And, you know, while I had never intended to be, you know, put a lot of focus on this type of construction and participation in consulting, my phone tends to be ringing a lot more these days. Stellar's doing a lot of pre-development, pre-construction consulting in all asset classes, and I have to credit that building for, being my billboard. And so, I'm benefiting significantly from the involvement and learning a lot.
Well, let's talk about that, what you're learning. What are some challenges that maybe you came into that maybe you didn't expect? And then after you go through that, I'd love to learn about, as an innovator, how'd you create the opportunities?
One of my favorite stories is when the first architecture firm would send over their draft of the floor plans. I think at one point in time, we were at 220 units. The average size was 20% smaller than what they are today. And we had some very interesting shapes. And, so I challenged them and believed, and because there was a heavy New York influence here. Mm-hmm. And what in the 25 years that I've been working in Arizona is, we're not New York. Mm-hmm. We can learn from them, but we can't expect our customers to be New Yorkers. Yeah, we'll get 10% of New Yorkers living there, but we have to compete with Arizona product, which is a larger product, and they like fresh air. And so I start marking up the floor plans, and I'd ship them back. They'd come back a week later. We'd do a look at them again. There was one particular studio that never changed. I kept rewriting it, crossing this out, redirecting the flow path, and it was based on, in my opinion, one of the best studios exists in the Optimus signature in Chicago, and I've been in it, and it rocks. So I'd send the changes back. Well, it kept coming back the same, and so I just, rather than beat my head against this, I thought, well, there's one way to prove this. We're not going to fly out to Chicago, but I'm going to go down to Home Depot, and I'm going to fill up my truck with 2x4s. Yeah. And I literally framed up the studio. I built it per the specs. At the same time, another high-rise was being developed down the street from us called the Stewart, and they were delivering appliances. I went down there and I got a refrigerator box, an oven box, and I put placeholders in the studio so you could feel it. Yes. And when ownership was visiting next, I walked them through it. Yeah. And they go, okay, we get it. It doesn't work.
Yeah, like the...
I said, there's 3 of us in right now, and 2 of us are trying to get out. Yeah. Because it just doesn't work. And so I guess if we're relegating that space to a single, yes, studios tend to be single occupants, but at the same time, they like company. Mm-hmm. And they'd like to be able to cook a dinner or whatever. Right. It's got to function. Right. So, big success story there was, don't give up on what you believe in. I didn't want to have excuses for why, 20 of the units didn't rent. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to say I told you so. Right. I just wanted to exhaust every creative option I had to convince somebody to do it, to think differently. Right. And that's a fun story to tell.
When you're looking at plans in 2D, and you've seen enough of these developments and lease-ups to kind of develop that skill to mentally go there and almost like a virtual walkthrough without the technology and the video of doing that. Is that what inspired you to kind of keep pushing? I mean, it's one thing to hear no and retreat on that because it's, in many cases, it's not our project. We don't own it. Maybe we're developing or managing for somebody else. But does that skill set, is that repetition? Like what got you to that level to say, no, this is, I know I care enough about the success of their investment victory that I'm willing to put my own, I'm going to step out, be courageous here, and do what's right. Because at the end of the day, the customer and the investor wins now.
It's a great question. Before starting Stellar, I could have retired, and I had a great career, and I had more fuel in the tank, and I had more ideas, And so anytime something comes before me now that's either new to me, or maybe in the past I'd shove over to the appropriate expert in the room,
Mm-hmm.
I take it on and I learn from it, and I try to impart, a piece of me that, might have some lasting effect, that I can say, now I can drive by buildings and say, I influenced that living experience, and here's how I did it. You touched a little bit on, the amenities throughout the rest of the building. It's a very, very challenged building in terms of common area. We cannot compete with a new build. We're working within some very strict restraints. And so we determined, and part of this demographic analysis, was 30 to 40% of it was dedicated to common area space and services and amenities. What's important to you? And the funny one is, do you really, I'd ask my personas this question, do you really need a fitness center?
Right.
And they'd say, absolutely. Okay, how often will you be in it? Never. Why? Well, I belong to Phoenix Country Club or the Village Racket Club. I have a personal trainer down the street. I go to yoga over there because I have friends. Yeah.
Specialized fitness is.
So it gave us the confidence to reduce that space, and realizing the audience will walk by and check the box. And if they do want to work out, there's plenty of beautiful things to work out with.
Sure.
But we know at the same time, we're not going to have 30 to 40 people in there at a time working out. It's just not the nature of renters. We know that.
Yeah.
And so we're not trying to be everything to everybody all the time. We're selective in how we purpose the space. And more to some of the basement space we have. We're going to have car detailing. We're going to cater to the services that make your life just easier.
Right. It's interesting that as people shop and look for apartments, they start coming in asking the obvious questions: square footage, rental rates, you name it. And I don't even know that they know what else to ask. And if you're not leading that conversation and they're asking those questions, then there's not enough else things going on to look at, or I don't know. So what are your thoughts on that? And when they walk in that atrium, rental price is probably not going to be the first question out of their mouth. But
so I've always been a student of consumer behavior, and even more so, specific to the renter's behavior, and what motivates them to make a decision to come live in one of my communities and pay me rent every month, every year. And so there's a saying that, or there's a word I like to use, which is the reveal. And the reveal is when you're walking into a space that has impact. And most communities, it's walking up to the clubhouse, it's touring through the model, going past the pool, into the model, and those are the points of reveal. And so our point of reveal, and you touched on it, is imagine you're standing in the bottom floor of the building, in the center of the atrium, and there's a 7-story art sculpture dropping down over your head. You're not thinking about square footage and rents anymore.
Right.
You're saying, I'm living here, and I can't wait to bring my friends.
Right.
This is a selfie moment, and I can't wait to share it. And if my team is doing their job, they aren't talking. They're allowing that person to take in this experience and how it's going to relate to them living there every day. Because these areas that that we work so hard and spend so much money on to present for your appreciation and approval, I don't know if you walk into a clubhouse and can picture yourself there, and If you're going to use it, I don't know. If you'll appreciate the texture of that color of that couch,
Right.
I don't know. But I do know that if I'm not talking to you, you'll have a chance to think about it. And it's a subtle presentation of you know, a glorious moment.
Yeah. And it anchors in the urgency and demand also, because they know, like, there's no other place like this, and boy, I better be quick moving if I do like this, otherwise I may miss out on this. You know, there's no other building being built like that.
I almost envision that after, with my team getting a little confidence, and if they follow my lead, if they trust me to say, please bring someone right here and just make it, and have them stand here and let them look around.
Yes. And
the first thing you might think about saying is, it's not for everyone. Because it's not.
Right.
We're not competing with anybody else on any level.
Right. But you may find a way to make this work. Carve out some other
Hopefully
elements.
it makes sense to you.
Yes.
Living in gorgeous.
Yeah. Let's talk about Stellar now. We've been talking about the project, the community, and how you shaped up this vision. Let's talk about your future there. What are your plans?
When I started Stellar, I really thought I was going to come off the wave of 23 years in property management and just, you know, build a third-party management company off of my relationships and my network and experience, and you know, that was the plan.
Yeah.
And while that is in play and that's a growing part of our company, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we're involved in a lot of I've looked at more site plans and floor plans and blueprints in the last 3 years than I did in the first 25 years.
The value engineering, all that.
Design, development, site planning, and we just finished, I know you're aware of this, but we just built 100 apartments in Prescott, stabilized it in 4 months, set records for rents. It's going to go out to market here any day, and that's a real feather in our cap. We're proud of it. We executed on all levels, and we're just going to continue to be. When somebody asks me what's Stellar do, I said there's nothing that we don't do as it relates to apartments. And so we're building, we're managing, we're buying, we're involved in all aspects of it.
Yeah.
And it feels good.
What's your take on the I don't want to call it a movement, but the single family market in terms of build to rent, and also just the buyer coming from that marketplace?
Well, my second piece of business at Stellar in early, or I should say mid 2018, was the Empire Group. And they were convinced that they could be a competitor in the single family for rent product, which is extremely popular out here in Arizona for those of you that are maybe unaware of it. But single story little houses, nobody living above you, below you, or beside you. Average square footage from 670 square feet to 1,200 square feet. Little backyards, dog doors, incredibly popular. Arizona has gravitated to it so much more than I anticipated. And so we opened our first project of possibly 10. We launched a brand, facilitated that brand, and stabilized that 184 units in 6 months, blew out the ceiling on the rents. That's going to market. I don't think you can build enough of that product. Now, there's a lot coming, don't get me wrong, but the net migration numbers for Arizona are staggering. And while we don't have a current number on 2020, at least I'm not aware of it, I think we're going to start to trend up towards where Arizona was at its peak at 100,000, 110,000. I believe at one point in time we were 120,000. Didn't last long, but I anticipate in the next 18 months we're going to see numbers like that again. If, depending on the numbers you use, if 4 out of 10 people need an apartment, That's easy math. Let's just call it 40,000 units of demand.
Mm-hmm.
We're underdeveloped.
Right.
And if COVID has had a positive effect on any asset class, it's this single for rent product, because they're easy living. And now that you don't have to commute in and out of the city, they're located out in the periphery, because where the land is more affordable, because you're only getting 10 to 12 units an acre. And they pencil. And people are lining up for them.
Well, how do you manage them?
Just get out of the way.
Yeah.
I mean, open the door every single day and make the application process simple. In fact, our branded tagline is living simplified. And so we step back from every aspect of finding an apartment, touring an apartment, renting an apartment, and living in one to determine if there's anything we could do. We found a handful of items that would make it easy on someone to support our tagline, because I didn't want to have this empty promise. What's living simplified, Dale?
Right.
Well, and we extended that into the design of the apartments, where we have some very specific furnishings that truly are efficient. You can make great use of small space, and it simplifies your life. So that's been a home run. I expect to see a lot of competition in that space over the next 10 years.
I'm looking at this hard hat, and it's got a light bulb on it. You mentioned living simplified. Tell me about the logo.
I was hoping you wouldn't ask, but here's my response to that logo. Patrick, what's it mean to you?
Well, I'll let the audience answer that, but it can mean innovation, ideas. Yeah.
Well, anytime
lighting up the world.
Anytime somebody wants to go that way, I do it. But then one person said, "Hey, the light bulb is out.
Yeah.
It's dark."
Oh, it needs light?
Right. I go, well,
depends.
He goes, "Is there anybody home?" I go, No. What it means is we're lights out.
Oh yeah.
We're lights out, baby.
Right.
We just had some fun with it.
Yeah, that's great, and it goes back to your understanding the consumer and letting them have their own voice of when something means.
It's just a thought-provoking image.
Yeah.
That, we kind of have a little commitment amongst ourselves that every milestone we hit, we're going to create a new logo. That's our second. That's 2.0. 3.0 is in the workings.
Yeah. Apple does something like that.
I don't.
Used to be, now it's what, silver or. Yeah.
We just don't take ourselves too seriously, as you can tell. I'm wearing your jacket.
I did notice. Oh, okay. I was like, I was going to wear one just like that.
Right.
That's awesome. I love that. I don't have anybody to jump out and scare you or anything like that,
Right.
but this has been awesome. I mean, getting to know
Good.
a little bit more, taking the viewers on the journey of One Camelback, also just kind of getting into your mind on how you see, this different thinking in terms of development, redevelopment, and the leadership aspect that you played. And it goes back even what you did 20 years ago, like you said, and building and designing and looking at floor plans and bringing that to a new company today. So tell me, are there any final thoughts you want to, we're at the end of our time here, but any final thoughts you want to leave our viewers with?
Well, I mean, there might be a couple of viewers in the audience. I know you'll remember, but I mean, when I say we don't take ourselves too seriously, do you remember the glass breaking event we did?
Yes.
With your conference a year and a half to 2 years ago?
Yes.
I
So
mean,
instead of groundbreaking,
we didn't have any ground to break. We had panels of glass to
Right.
break. And so with a champagne toast and a sledgehammer hidden in the ceiling,
right?
explosion. Do you remember the excitement that everybody had just by
Yes.
watching a piece of glass blow up?
Right.
That was fun.
That was fun, and nobody expected it,
No.
and it was different, and it's always a surprise when I'm there. I'm a little almost like, even today, I'm like, what's he doing? Who's he going? Like,
Right.
What is happening?
We're kind of committed to making memories one way or the other.
Okay.
Hopefully that doesn't include a jury trial.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We'll keep you out of that trouble.
It's
All
been
right.
great fun. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you coming down. Again, we'll have to do some more work together
Sure.
and follow the journey
Yep.
of One Camelback.
Can't wait to have you back there when we're finished.
Yeah, awesome.